Hi, I'm Maggie. I'm a licensed clinical psychotherapist. I have degrees in psychology, theology, and marriage and family therapy, and a national certification in dialectical behavioral therapy.
Wow, my sound is all over the place. There it goes. There is such a lag. Wow, I don't know what was going on with my internet, but that was weird. Hey, Snowman. Hey, Nina. Thanks for being here. Still doing it. Can you guys hear an echo? Hey, Leon. We'll try this. I don't know if you guys can hear an echo or not. It's doing this weird echo thing. Yours went wonky too. Yeah, it's like there's a lag and it's playing back my sound. Let me see if I can get this. Let's try that. Okay, no echo there. Okay. I don't know what I was doing, but it was going weird. Okay, so tonight, yes, I'm struggle streaming, Leo. I don't hear the echo now because I turned the sound down. So, yay. Okay, so tonight we were gonna talk about the movie Inside Out 2, but I was contacted by some people who said they never got to the movies. And I know I didn't get back to the movies. So now I have to find out, did any of you get to the movies? Sometimes the week just gets away from us, right? Although I know a couple people who are going now and actually won't be in here tonight because they're going now. And so we may put it off to next week. So, with that in mind, we can go ahead with okay, Nina didn't get to the movies either. Okay, maybe I just need to take Auntie to the movies. So, we're going to talk about instead, yeah, Leon didn't either. I think the week just got away from everybody. It's been a week. Um, okay, so we're going to talk about personal algorithm a little bit more, NPCs and the ops. There's a lot of info with this, so we may not get all the way through of it and have to do a part 2 of this particular one. So, we're gonna get when we talk about algorithm tonight, we're gonna look at it kind of from a computer perspective. Um, I like to visualize things. I like to compare things together to help give me an idea. I love a good metaphor and a visualization. So this helps to kind of explain, especially when we talk about like being an avatar, being in the matrix, if we can liken things to computer speak, then sometimes it makes sense. So I also want to get into when we're talking about this synchronicity, coincidences, repeating patterns, glitches, Mandela effects, those kind of things. So, again, like I said, there's a ton in this one. Oh, Auntie says take you to practical magic too. I want to see Inside Out again. I need somebody to go with. Okay, so let's talk about like what an algorithm is. An algorithm is, so notes in front of me again, because when I write down definitions, I got to make sure I say it right. An algorithm is a process or a set of rules to be followed in calculations or other problem-solving operations, especially by a computer. Okay, so it's a set of rules, it's a pattern. In social media, what you've ingested or what you've watched, sometimes what you've said, well, the algorithm affects your search results, your descriptive information, and your predictive suggestions. So that's what we want to look at, like how it is in social media. Because that's a good way for us to understand like what's our personal algorithm as we interact with the world. My throat is dry. I've been talking today already, so we'll see how long my voice lasts. Okay, so when we talk about search results, when we're interacting with the world, what we search, is what we look for. So there's some things that fall into search results where it has to do with how we interact with the world. The first one is confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is the tendency to seek out things that support our already existing beliefs, or even interpret the information that we're given to support our existing beliefs. Now, where we can see examples of this is like when you get online and people talk about their political beliefs, and there's like an argument for everything, you know um and anything that you say confirms their bias. There's like nothing you can say that will change their set of beliefs, because they're going to interpret everything to confirm what they're saying. Does anybody else have problems with that online, arguing with people online, and like everything you say just somehow confirms their beliefs in who you are or what you're saying? The other thing that can happen for our personal search results is echo chambers. And we see that a lot online. I mean, to a certain extent, specific areas of YouTube or social media, TikTok does this, where people name a space, let me go to gardening TikTok, and then it's like it sets your algorithm to where now all you're seeing is gardening TikToks. But an echo chamber is an environment or a type of ecosystem. So those spaces are ecosystems where participants encounter beliefs that amplify or reinforce their pre-existing beliefs. So this is very much like confirmation bias, but what you say is being echoed back at you, right? Instead of interpreting everything to support you, in this, everybody in that ecosystem are all saying the same thing. So it amplifies or reinforces pre-existing beliefs through the way people communicate and repeating the same things over and over and over and over. It's a closed system that will automatically distrust any outsider. So that is an echo chamber. Now, there's safety in an echo chamber for sure. It's not all bad. Echo chamber is one of those things that gets hurled at people. Like, this is just an echo chamber. But there's also safety in that. There has to be spaces where you can talk about the things that you want to talk about, if that makes sense. Okay. Leon says, I don't argue, but there's this thing. If you're not enough on the left, the leftists will attack. And for some of those on the right, you're never enough communists for the communists. Yeah, like you can be attacked by your own people. And like I say, most of us are somewhere in the middle. I'm going to talk about the Overton window during this session. And that's what I think of. Most of us are in this Overton window in the middle. Um, so another thing that affects our search results, like what we see, what we look at, what we interact with, is something called an epistemic bubble. So it's slightly different than an echo chamber in that in an epistemic bubble, it's more like ignorance. You don't know, right? So in these bubbles, you lack exposure to relevant information and arguments against what you're talking about. So in an echo chamber, it can also be an epistemic bubble, especially if there's distrust of outsiders. You're never getting an outside viewpoint. You're only hearing what you say echoed back. And so in an epistemic bubble, it's sort of accidental, where you're just not exposed to information and arguments against what you're saying. So those are some ways that as we're interacting with the outside world and we're trying to figure out what does our personal algorithm look like right now and how do I change it, look for ways that you use confirmation bias where you've made decisions about people and no matter what they say or do, they are who I said they are, period. And just not being open to being wrong about somebody. And then what areas of your life look like an epistemic bubble or look like an echo chamber, where you're not getting outside information, you're not getting extra information, you're not challenging your own belief system and your bias, right? Because if we have a belief system, we should be able to defend our belief system, not just, well, this is what I believe and that's it. Because I said so, because I'm right and I'm always right. I am the master of my world, right? Okay. Like, as an example, and I'm trying to come up with an example, I had to use something ridiculous because I didn't want people to think I actually think this way about certain people. So it's like saying, everybody I know says that purple people smell funky and eat mushrooms. Okay. And then somebody says, okay, well, let's ask some purple people. And then I'm not talking to purple people. No way. I don't talk to funky people. I don't talk to people who eat mushrooms. By the way, I love mushrooms. So mushroom eaters, don't get offended. And so then somebody says, okay, well, let's look at the research about purple people, and the person, I'm not wasting my time on researching purple people. So it creates this echo chamber, this epistemic bubble where everybody can just bash on purple people because we refuse to talk to purple people. We're not going to look at research about purple people. That's it. This is what we believe and this is it. And we're going to stick with it. Now, again, sometimes there's safety in that, and there has to be places where you can complain about certain things that happen. But we're talking about setting your algorithm. So if you have specific beliefs about people and everywhere you go, there's no real challenge to that, then you never have to defend your belief system. So maybe some challenges might be good. Okay, everybody's being quiet in the chat. Hopefully this is good information and not everybody has fallen asleep. Okay, so there's your search engine. Those things affect your search engine. What you look for. Are you challenging what you believe? Okay. Have you only ever heard one side of the argument? Maybe that's why. Oh, Leanne says we're just listening. Okay. I better be good then. Okay. The next one is descriptive information. So descriptive information is how we analyze the information that we get, and this affects our insight for future things. Our insight comes from our experience, how we know how to analyze information, how we know how to utilize sensory information, how we research things, how quickly we are to just agree with whatever is said. So there are specific measures for our descriptive information. Okay. So we have measures of central tendency and measures of variability. So for measures of central tendency, when we're looking at computers and they talk about descriptive information, measures of central tendency are all the things in the middle, like the most people, the average number of people, like that's measures of central tendency. Okay. So when we're talking about our personal algorithm, our measure of central tendency is, unfortunately, all humans, and there is research out there. If you guys want me to get copies and put it in the description, let me know. But all humans generally believe that most other people think just like them or should think just like them or will think just like them. That's our measures. That's our personal measure of central tendency, is that for the most part, we think everybody thinks like us. So when we're having a debate or we're defending our viewpoints, we're coming from the assumption that the other person thinks like we do. And then if it turns into an argument because they're not thinking like us, then we move into, well, you should think like I do. You idiot. You dumb. Why do you even think that? That's dumb. And we only think it's dumb because we think differently. Or we think if we argue hard enough, or if we're forceful enough, or we say it loud enough, that the other person will change their mind and think like us. We just generally think that if we feel strongly about something, if we think strongly about something, then we must be right. But that's a flaw in human thinking, to think that everybody does, should, or could think like me. Right? Oh, Leon says, we know people don't think like that. We know it's their babble. Yeah. Okay. So that's a human measure of central tendency. So that's something, as we're doing shadow work, Joe, but everybody realize we are so beyond young right now. So this is all just inner work. Is realizing that we generally come at everything thinking that we're thinking about it correctly. Makes sense? Okay. So for measures of variability, that is how things vary, right? So this is more like the spread. Instead of all the stuff that's in the middle, what's the spread of information look like? So, like I said, I wanted to talk about the Overton window. So the Overton window is used in politics. So it's this measure of left to right. Okay. So it changes what's in the middle. So if we're generally moving more leftist, then who is considered centrist gets more left. If we're moving to the right, then who is seen as centrist moves more to the right, because there's this window that shows the majority of people. That's called the Overton window. For ourselves, even though this is used in politics, right? For ourselves, it's the measure of acceptability. What is accepted? What do we accept? And it's a range, right? There are things outside of this range that we just consider unacceptable. Thanks, Leon. And for us, it's sort of like overarchingly, not where our window is, but overarchingly, it's like somewhere between live and let live, all the way to you better be exactly like me. So that's our measure of acceptability, right? Like, how close to exactly like me do I want variability in my life? Do I want everything in my life to be everything I've already done I've already experienced, I've already been around, all the people that I already know? Or do I want different and varied things? Again, it's variability, right? Do I want to slide that window to things that may start feeling a little uncomfortable? Is there a way to maybe expand your Overton window? And that sort of harkens back to, you know, being in echo chambers and not getting information about what maybe goes against your beliefs or it scratches at it, you know? Like, yeah, I can't even give examples because I don't want people to think I think poorly of them. So I don't want to do that. But that Overton window will tell you. And some people, again, due to safety, poor experiences, things like that, they have a small Overton window and it's very close to like them because there's safety in like me, right? You know what to expect. You know how to operate around people and you know how to operate in this world. If you've literally never left your neighborhood, you've never moved out of your neighborhood, that is so comfortable and so safe. Even if it's not necessarily a safe neighborhood, you know how to navigate it. So when you're setting your personal algorithm, I'm not saying you have to slide the Overton window or you have to have people argue with you or you have to have people prove you right. This is all just information for you to set your algorithm how you want to. You are the expert of your life and how to live it. This is just info. Okay. Adrian says, nope, everyone needs to be like me or else I become an op. Makes me think you like to argue on the internet. Okay, Nina says food for thought. Yeah. So also as part of variability is variance, right? So like who would I consider not like me? You know, who all again, if you look at what makes a culture, you know, who listens to different music than me, who eats different food than me, who looks different than me, who was raised different than me. Like, and the people who are not like me, what do I think of them? Leon, you could be right. Adrian Hicks is starting fires. So, people who are not like you, what do you think of them? And why do you think that way about them? There could be very good reasons that you think that way, you know. Oh, here, I'll give an example. Um, Up until the last probably year, um, I have had a real fear of big dogs, like anything bigger than like 25 pounds. And yes, I know we're talking about people, but we're also talking about places and things too. Like what kind of things are not like me? Um, and I knew it was because I had been bitten on the face by a dog when I was 4. And I remember it. Like I remember the muzzle coming at me and it was pretty scary. So I knew why. I knew why I had a fear of bigger dogs. Um, but it was something that was I love dogs, right? Like I think dogs are pretty, I think they're funny, you know, I like dogs. So I wanted to be able to get past that, right? So this was a way in which I could open my Overton window to, you know, exactly like me means always afraid of big dogs. So I wanted to expand it. I wanted to get past that fear. So I put some work into that and that changed my algorithm. Now there's no fear. Okay. The last one on measures of variability, Adrian's ready, um, is deviation, right? So how far away from me am I willing to go? you know, like how far until I'm now out all the way out of my value system, or I'm all the way into something dangerous? How far from me am I willing to go? An example of this is like people traveling. You could go to a different town and things are a little bit different. You can go to a different state and it gets more different, right? But you could go to a whole other country, maybe they speak the same language, and things are getting really different. You could go to a completely different country and you don't speak the language and the culture is completely different. You don't know how to operate at all. You don't know what's safe, what's not safe, what to say, what not to say, where to go, what food to eat, like nothing. So in our lives and how we interact, we have to figure out how far away from me am I willing to explore. And there's no right answer to that. Only you know the right answer to how far away from me am I willing to explore, just to, expand my mind a little bit. I don't know about you guys. Like, I love to ask people, if you could travel anywhere in the world, where would you want to go? So put in the comments, if you could literally go anywhere in the world, where would you go? And you can tell me why or not. It doesn't matter. Just tell me, where would you go? If there's no barriers, like you had all the money, if you needed a passport, you have a passport. If you need to travel, you have travel. Like there's nothing stopping you. Where would you go? This is exciting. Okay. Leon says, that's more of the issue I have. I play a value system game of 5 out of 10 and I'm comfortable. I don't know that it's an issue. Like there's a reason. The more important thing is understanding why, right? Like, why do I feel this way? Why do I think this way? If there's good reasons, keep them. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't want to go in the woods and get eaten by a bear, don't. You know what I mean? Tonight is all adults in here. So literally everyone in here is an adult. So you are allowed to make whatever decisions you want. You are allowed to figure out your central tendencies, know how far you're willing to travel and explore, know what kind of epistemic bubbles and echo chambers you want to be in. You're allowed, and nobody gets to tell you what to do. Isn't that great? Okay. Nina is going to Wells. Cynical Optimist, thank you for being here. Going to Spain. Oh, I would love to go to Spain. Adrian Hex is going to India. Oh my gosh, the way it's so pretty, like the way people dance and things in India, so pretty. Leon says Iran or Afghanistan. Oh, that would be interesting. Oh, Adrian is reminding me that Wyatt is friendly. So if you go into the woods with Wyatt, then you'll be fine. But if you don't know Wyatt, then you should probably stay away from bears altogether. Because, they're dangerous. Okay. Those are awesome places. Wouldn't it be cool if you could just go all those places? But the thing that I notice is I'm telling all of you guys, you can travel anywhere and look at where you're going. You're not talking about, oh, I'm going to go to Miami or Niagara Falls. Everybody is like, let's explore, which is great. Like everybody says another country, another culture, different people. Like, that's amazing. You guys you're all about it. Okay. Next thing for a personal algorithm, predictive suggestions. Okay. So predictive suggestions, when you type, an autocorrect just puts a word in and 9.5 times out of 10, it's a word that you weren't even talking about. And that is a predictive suggestion, but it also happens with like our ad information, what we're shown, it's trying to predict what we want based on what we've done before. So for our personal life, a little fuzzy. For our personal life, it's based upon what you most commonly do, right? So when we're talking about just purely social media, it's based on what you type in, what you look at. So for ourselves, it's based upon what you most commonly do. So there's something that humans do. It's akin to going on autopilot. Okay. The name is escaping me right now what the process is called, but honestly, it doesn't matter what the name is called. Um, and what we do is we turn off our awareness when we go on autopilot. So this is where our subconscious habits come into play. Okay. So think about like when you're driving home from work, you're kind of tired, your brain is tired, and then you pull in your driveway and you're like, I don't even remember driving home, is because you turn off your conscious awareness and your mind goes into autopilot. It knows how to drive. It knows where you live. It's been there many times. And so you just drive and you get there. It's similar, when they call muscle memory, like you play a sport and you've done the drill so many times that you don't have to take time to think about what you're supposed to do. You're on autopilot, right? You turn off your conscious awareness and you just do the thing that you've been taught to do. You throw the ball or you catch the ball or kick the ball. Yeah, that's pretty much everything. Sports ball. Oh, wait, hit the ball. Could hit the ball too. Okay. So when we've gone into autopilot and we've turned off our conscious awareness, um, we can click it back on in a variety of ways. And usually it's either surprise or novelty, right? So if you're driving home on autopilot and somebody pulls out in front of you, your conscious awareness is going to click back on. You are surprised by that, right? Um, or you see something wild that is not generally there on your drive home. There's the novelty, right? So that's generally through surprise or novelty, your conscious awareness will click back on. When we're in autopilot, that's when all the predictive suggestions are really running. Predictive suggestions come from our subconscious. So where hi, Mr. Shug to you, that's where our predictive suggestions are coming from. Now, that's all based on what we have fed it, right? If we're constantly watching videos of cars blowing up and we're only talking to people about cars blowing up, and now our confirmation bias is starting to tell us that cars blow up, then our predictive suggestion is going to tell us anytime we're near a car, there's a chance that car could blow up. By the way, that's where a lot of anxiety comes from, is our predictive suggestions from our subconscious about all the terrible, horrible, awful things that could happen. Okay, Mr. Shug says, it happened to me quite a few times. I drive 1 hour each way to work. I blacked out and came to scared and lost. Yeah, you might have been, instead of just in autopilot, drifting a little bit more into sleep. Oof. And peace to you, Mr. Sugar. Okay, so this happens to our senses even when we feel like we're consciously aware. Okay, so there's something. Okay, you guys remember the Febreze commercials where they talked about being nose blind? Put a 1 in the chat if you remember the Febreze commercials about being nose blind, where like they would have somebody come in and the person who walks in like sees a gigantic sneaker, but the person who lives there doesn't smell but the person who walks in, that's all they smell. And so the sneaker is huge, or the litter box, or whatever it is, like, because the person who's in it doesn't smell it because they've gotten used to it, right? So this is something that our brain does all the time. Like, for instance, if you just look forward, the moment I say it, you're going to see it. So just be aware. When you look forward, you don't see your nose. But as soon as you become consciously aware that you can't see your nose, you start to see your nose. So think about it this way, or do this. Close your right eye, you can see your nose, right? Close your left eye, you can see your nose. Now, when you open your eyes, you can see your nose. But what your brain does is say that nose is there 100% of the time, all the time, and it never changes and it never goes anywhere. And there's nothing surprising or novelty about seeing the nose. So we're just going to turn that part off. We're just going to not see it. And those kind of things happen all the time. Even though we're consciously aware, our brain is filtering information for us because there's no surprise or novelty happening. Anything that stays the same gets filtered out. Interesting, huh? Nina says, now I'm worried about cars blowing up. All right, Mr. Shug and Nina know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Leon says, yeah, that happens when you have animals, that smokers are also that way, right? Like smokers don't smell the smoke smell on them, but other people can smell the smoke smell. And then it makes smokers get kind of paranoid about it because they're like, do I stink? Can people smell that? Is that bad? Do I smell like smoke? So, I mean, we know some of those things, but if you think about that's how your brain is filtering information, your brain works as a filter organ. It's just filtering information. And so knowing that these things can happen and that your predictive suggestions are actually controlling a lot more than you know it is, we have to think about what are we feeding the subconscious, what are we putting into the algorithm to know what suggestions it's going to give us? Are we in an echo chamber? Are we constantly watching videos of cars blowing up? Are we, is everything we talk about an argument and stressful and anger producing? Then we have to balance that out, right? Like, I'm not saying that you can't be involved in politics or argue online or, because we have to attend to the serious things, right? Like, we have to have hard conversations. We have to pay our bills. We have to do hard things, right? And we have to learn about what's going on in the world. We can't just put our heads in the sand. We have to balance that out, or else our algorithm gets very stuck in that train and it'll stay in that path until something surprising or novelty happens, because it'll filter out the fact that it's stressful, but it's stressful. It creates a lot of stress. We have a lot of stress if we're not balancing that out. Okay. So when we talk about identifying, so we've talked about ways the personal algorithm works. When we want to identify our personal algorithm, to even know if there's anything we want to change, or what that would be if we want to change something about our personal algorithm, we look for, the synchronicities, the coincidences, the Mandela effects, those kind of things. So synchronicity is only slightly different from coincidence, and the difference only has to do with the intention, with the weight of part of the definition. So here. Synchronicity is the occurrence of events simultaneously that seem meaningful but don't share a root cause. So an easy example of that is two people say the exact same thing at the same time. You don't know, I mean, nobody caused you to line up your voices and say those things at the same time, but it seems like there's a meaning behind that. Like, it's always interesting when that happens. In synchronicity, we focus more on there's meaning behind the fact that these two things happen simultaneously. That is synchronicity. Coincidence is two things happening at the same time that appear meaningful, but they don't share a cause. So in coincidence, we focus more on the fact of it doesn't have a cause. It seems like there's a meaning, but there's no cause. So it's where the focus is to look at the difference. Does it seem like it's more meaningful, or does it seem like there's really no cause and therefore must be no meaning? A lot of people say, I don't believe in coincidences. Personally, I don't believe in coincidences either. But mostly because I'm focused on my personal algorithm and making sure that it's as healthy as possible. Okay. The next one is repeating patterns. Repeating patterns. Our lives are full of repeating patterns. Even though sometimes it doesn't seem like that. When we think about it, everything in life is a repeating pattern. We are repeating things over and over again. So it could be repeated situations with the same people. Like I keep going round and round with the same person, which could be positive or negative. I could have a best friend and we always somehow end up, giggling so hard we get the hiccups. That's a repeated situation with the same people. Or it could be bad. Like keep going back to the same lover, over and over again. And it always, goes up in smoke, right? So it's repeated situations with the same people, enough to where you're going to ask yourself, why do we always do this? Why do we always end up here? Why do we always end up giggling so hard? Why do we always end up going up in smoke every time we try to date? That's your brain going, hey, you're in a pattern here. You're in a repeated situation with the same person over and over again. It could also be repeated situations with new people. So as an example, well, we were just talking about dating. So like, why is it everybody I date ends up being the exact same person? Like they're totally different people, but they end up treating me the same way or saying the same things or doing the same thing to me. Why? It's a repeated situation with the same ending, but it's new people every time. It just always ends the same. Why do I keep doing this? Why do I keep picking the wrong person? Why do I keep picking the wrong situation? Why? As soon as you start asking yourself, that's when you're in this repeating pattern, this cycle that you have to stop, right? The cycles in life are always up and down, right? Like we cannot have sustained joy. Joy without hardship means nothing. Then it's just normal. And humans can only sustain happiness for short periods of time. Being satisfied, feeling authentic in your life, feeling purposeful, all of those things are much more important because we can only sustain happiness for a brief amount of time. And we also have this thing called the hedonistic treadmill, which is where the more you try to be happy, the less happy you are. You have to find things that the side effect is happiness to be happy, which could be unfortunate depending on how you look at that. So we have cycles up and down, right? But those can be patterns as well. Like as an example with money, like every time I start getting a little extra money, somebody asks to borrow money or somebody needs it or somebody asks me for it. Like I do well, I'm doing good. I got my bills paid. I'm getting a little extra money and here comes somebody. Like I didn't even tell anybody I had money. I wasn't spending the money. Nobody could tell, but here they come. Like there was a call into the forest and all the people came because somebody needs money, right? When you start asking yourself why is it that when this happens? And then because I'm a helper, I'm going to let them borrow money. And now I'm on the struggle bus again. Now I'm worried about getting my bills paid because now they owe me money and God only knows when they're going to pay me that money. Right. Or if they pay me back at all. Right. Maybe they just needed it and you're never getting it. You just wanted to help. So when you start asking yourself why, there's repeating patterns there. Right. Leon says that is fact. Yeah. So our thought cycles, so these are things that happen externally in the way we're interacting with the world. We can also get repeating patterns in our thought cycles. And if anybody in here, and you don't have to tell me, if anybody in here has anxiety, you know exactly what I'm talking about getting caught in repeated patterns of thought cycles. Leon says, oh, when I have the bag, my phone is out of service. Yeah, you may not be in that pattern, right? Like when I've got money, my phone doesn't work. Okay, so thought cycles. Thoughts and behaviors happen through a series of reinforcement, rewards, and punishments. So, what we think and how we behave is a cycle. Okay. So, the cycle of how humans behave and think and feel is it looks like a triangle. Okay. So on one end, we have our emotions. So we have how we feel. On one corner, we have a thought. And in one corner, we have a behavior. And it goes around and around where the starting point could be different. Right. So I could have an emotion of sad. Okay, so I'm feeling sad. Then my thought about that is I'm just bored, or, oh, I miss my friend. And so that affects my behavior. So I'm going to go see my friend. And then when I see my friend, I'm reinforced with a happy emotion. You see what I'm saying? And so everything we do is like this pattern. We have emotion, we have thought, we have behavior, and it reinforces itself over and over again. Okay. So we're already in that cycle, and it even can start with behavior. I could stub my toe. I didn't have a thought or an emotion that made me stub my toe. There was a behavior there, there was an action, but I'm for sure going to have an emotion about it, and I'm going to have a thought about it. And then I'm going to have a behavior based on my thought and my emotion, probably saying a curse word or jumping up and down or rubbing my toe. If it's my baby toe, I'm on the floor. I don't know about you guys. You stub that baby toe, the little bitty toe, I'm on the floor. I at that moment, I feel like I need a cast and crutches and I'll never walk again. I have a lot of thoughts and feelings about that baby toe. Adrian Hicks says, shout out to negative feedback loops. Yep, that's what we're going to talk about. Yep, for sure. Oh, Mr. Shig says, I know you got some money. I can smell a person with some money. Yes, it worked. You think I have money. This is a set, guys. It's all fake. Okay. So in the thought cycle, okay, thoughts and behaviors happen through reinforcement, reward, punishment. We can also learn through communicating with other people, which affects our thoughts, observing other people. Like we are animals who learn through observation. We can see somebody put their hand on the stove and get burned, and we learned not to put our hand on the stove and because we'll get burned. And now that's a thought that we have. We can learn things through trial and error, and then that becomes thoughts that we have, or just insight that we might get, which insight, again, based on experiences that we have, based on observations, based on other things, we can now generalize and create insight that affects our thoughts. Okay. So when we have repeating thought cycles, when we have thought loops, there are reasons those thoughts persist no matter how hard we're trying to not think the thing. Okay. Much like happiness, the more you seek happiness, the harder it is to get. The harder you try to stop a negative thought cycle or a negative feedback loop, the worse it gets, unfortunately. So we have to think more of the why. Where did this pattern come from? How was it reinforced? Who reinforced it? How did I learn it? Where did it come from? Who was involved? The who, what, when, why, and where of this thought. Not just the why right now. Why right now am I having this thought? It's more of a why is it even in the computer bank? Okay. Again, like when we talk about shadow, these are the things that shadow yells from the abyss and won't shut up. These are the negative feedback loops, the negative thought cycles. And so we have to ask the questions of where it came from to be able to code it into a different part of the brain, not the one that's going to pop up every time we like make a mistake or feel bad about ourselves or forgot to do something or did something wrong, or then that negative cycle comes up, right? Oh, and Auntie is reminding people to hit the like button. So hit the like button, please, for Auntie. Okay. Another thing. Yeah, we may get through everything. Glitches. Now, if you've seen the Matrix movie, you know what a glitch in the Matrix is, right? Like they was showing the cat and then the cat is here, but also online, you're watching a movie or and the film glitches, we understand what glitches are, but when we try to think about like what is a glitch in our real life, it's literally just unexplained phenomena that makes you question reality, right? That's how it was in the Matrix, right? Like when there were glitches and people saw the glitches, it made them question reality. So that's all a glitch is just some unexplained phenomena that makes you question, was that real? Did that just happen? I've never seen that before. Is that a real thing? It's just phenomena, right? And shout out to the Muppets if that song plays in your head every time you hear the word phenomenon. Okay, so there are patterns there too with glitches. Like everything could seem chaotic, and then all of a sudden there's a pattern of things moving in unison. Like it seems like it should be random, but then they're all there. Or like sometimes I will notice I'll be driving on the highway and then I'll notice like every single car around me, as far as I can see, is the same color. Then I go, what is that? Like, it's a phenomenon that makes me go, I can't explain that. And that's really weird. Or disappearing things. Like, that used to be there and it's not there anymore. Or you put something somewhere and it's not there anymore. You're expecting to see something and it doesn't show up. Not necessarily that you're looking at something and it disappears, but just that stuff is not where you expect it to be. And then you're like, wasn't there always a stop sign right here? Or wasn't that house always green? It's that the disappearing detail tell you glitches, missing time. And I'm not talking about autopilot. This is more like, holy cow, is it always already Wednesday? Like, I don't even remember Monday. What happened on Monday? And you really have to think about what happened on Monday to try to remember those things. It's almost like time slipped a little bit, or like, it's the end of the day already. It's the end of June already. We feel like we have some time slips. And so these are like glitches. Now, because I'm a psychotherapist, I'm going to put a little warning in here, a little caveat that if these things are happening a lot and they are affecting your life, these could be signs of psychological distress. So talk to your professional who you choose, who you trust. Trusted person, doesn't even have to be a professional, but talk to somebody if these things are happening a lot and it's affecting you. It's affecting your day to day. Cynical Optimist is laughing. Adrian Hicks says that's because all cars are the same color. Don't mess with me. Oh, Leon says this woman moves the stuff all the time. It reminds me of the magic table. Yeah, deja vu. Yeah, that's another glitch, right? Like, have I been here before? Have I done this before? It's a phenomena that makes you question reality, right? Okay, Leon, I'm gonna tell you guys a story real quick about the magic table. So there's a story where a man and a woman get married, and the guy has this table that he just always throws the stuff on, like his car keys, his wallet, his cup, the receipts, something he picked up somewhere, a fork, just random stuff. That's the table. That's like the junk table, right? And he just will not clean up after himself. And so every night, the woman, because she likes things to look tidy and neat and things to be put away in their space, she goes and cleans off the table and puts everything away. And so this happens night after night after night after night. And so finally she gets tired of having to clean up this table every night because he just throws stuff on there. And she says, I'm tired of cleaning up after you. I need you to start cleaning up after yourself. Help me help you. I need you to do this. I don't want to be picking up and organizing everything every day. And he says, well, put it on the magic table. And she's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, okay, well, I have a magic table. When you moved in, the table turned magic. Every night, I just throw all my crap on the table, like all of it. And when I wake up in the morning, it's all put away. It's one of my favorite stories. It's the magic table. Okay, back to what we're talking about, because I want to talk about Mandela effects. So who has heard, put your hand up in the chat if you've heard of a Mandela effect. Because for people who haven't, it's a little wackadoo to talk about because people don't get it, right? Oh, and I even sent myself a link. Let me see. Because I wanted to talk about some of the Mandela effects. Okay, give me one sec. I'm going to find this. And you guys can keep answering. Oh, there it is. Okay, because I want to talk about Mandela effects. Okay, Adrian has, Leon has, Cynical Optimist has, Mr. Shook has. Okay, awesome. Okay, and Nina has. Okay, perfect. So Mandela effects, I don't know if everybody knows where it came from, but it's actually named after Nelson Mandela. So this is where large masses of people have identical memories of things that did not happen. And I'm talking large masses of people. So the phenomena started, like nobody had ever reported experiencing it. Nobody could ever remember experiencing it before February 11th, 1990. So February 11th, 1990, Nelson Mandela was released from prison. Okay. And for some of us, it was a surreal moment. Okay. I was one of the people that had a different memory. So I was very confused watching, everything on the news. The phenomena wasn't named until 2009 when a woman was talking about her experience of seeing Nelson Mandela leave prison. And she was talking about how it was really weird for her because she had this very clear memory of the news reporting that Nelson Mandela had died years in the 80s, years earlier. And she could describe the what the newscasters were showing, how people were behaving, things people were even wearing on the news reports. And she was just explaining, like, she was studying this phenomena because it was such a vivid false memory. That's what she was calling it, right? Well, what happened was, as news of this got out, millions of people had the same memory, that there was a breaking news report. Nelson Mandela had died in prison. They were showing people's reactions in the street. Um, that was the memory I had. I literally can still picture them showing Winnie Mandela with the family. I can remember how my mother was acting, she was distraught. People were upset. Like, it's a very indelled memory, and it didn't happen, right? Like, he left prison in 1990 and went on to do things. So it's that's why it's called the Mandela effect, is because that's literally when it happened. People don't remember ever feeling that way about anything before then. And the interesting thing is that there's more and more and more and more of these things where there are millions of people that remember something one way and millions of people that remember it another way. And one of those sets of people are wrong. So it's fun to look at what are some of the things, that people have different memories about. Yes, Cynical Optimist, Shazam. The movie was Sinbad. I remember the movie. I can tell you the plot of the movie, and it supposedly never happened. Oh yeah, Leon says Sex in the City or Sex and the City and Pikachu. Yeah, those are on here. Okay, so I'm going to share screen, and we are going to look at some of these. It's let me make this a little smaller so I can see the comments, because I want to see the comments. There we go. Okay, so this is, what is the Mandela effect? We talked about it. We don't need to watch that. I got to get to okay, so it's talking about Nelson Mandela, right? And how that happened. Okay, so wait, let's start with that one. Who remembers Nelson Mandela dying in prison? Like, tell me what you remember, that he died in prison. I suppose everyone would remember that he was released in the 90s. So you either do or do not remember him being reported as dying in prison. So tell me that one. We're going to test some of these. I told you mine. I definitely remember it. It's a very, very vivid memory. I'm glad it's false, honestly. Oh, yeah. Some people say that Shazam was hidden, right? Okay. So that was number one, Nelson Mandela. That's what started the whole thing. You know what I mean? Okay. The next one is it the Berenstein Bears or the Berenstain Bears? Okay, Nina remembers that he died in prison. And Mr. Shug, I remember him getting out. Yeah. What's interesting is that now I remember both, right? Because I was watching, the news, and they're showing him being released, walking through the square, all the people around. But I didn't say anything out loud, but it was like, I could have sworn. Like, at the same time, I'm remembering the memory, because I'm like, was that not him? Was it somebody else? And so now I literally remember both. It's interesting. Okay. What do we think? Berenstain Bears or Berenstain Bears? Leon says, I don't remember really. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Nina says now she can see both. Right. Now, for me, it is the Berenstain Bears, not the Berenstain Bears. Or some people say Berenstain Bears. To me, it has never been the Berenstain Bears. Yeah, Kazam was the other movie that was out, Leon. Yeah. I remember both movies, so that's the bad part. Unfortunately, right? Okay. So, it is actually Berenstain, not Berenstein. And I literally can remember the cartoon, Berenstain Bears, but apparently it's the Berenstain Bears. I don't remember it that way. Okay. In the portrait of Henry VIII, is he holding a glove or a turkey leg in his left hand? Now, me, again, turkey leg. Maybe I'm just, saying all the wrong ones. You guys just know already. What are the things that didn't happen? The one that Maggie said. But yeah, I remember the turkey leg. Henry VIII is holding a turkey leg. Okay. What's reality? In reality, Henry VIII is not depicted holding a turkey leg in any of his portraits. Isn't that interesting? It's so interesting. Yeah. I remember him holding a turkey leg. Okay. The creator of Peanuts, was that Charles Schultz with the T or Charles Schulz, no T? So the creator of the Peanuts comic strip, Charlie Brown, is that Charles Schultz with the T or Charles Schulz, no T? Now, I remember no T. Charles Schulz. So let's see what it actually is, because I'm like, oh, for however many. What number are we on? 4. Okay. No T. Hey, I finally got one. Yay. Finally got one. Oh, I have a bunch of people walking in my house, so I'm going to mute and shut my door. Okay. All right. Let's keep going. Move that. Okay. No T. Oh, Mr. Sugar remembers the T. See, aren't these strange? And again, these come up because there are millions of people that have one memory and millions that have a whole other memory. Okay. For the Loom logo, is there a cornucopia? The baskety thing. Leon says you can't trust the capitalists. They switch things up. Okay. Cornucopia, no cornucopia. Me, I remember cornucopia. I literally remember it on the tags of t-shirts. Like this, the fruit with the cornucopia. Okay, Nina says cornucopia. Anybody else? With or without? Okay, the answer is not even as far back as 1893. Yes, we know it looks better with it, but it has never had a cornucopia. It's always just been the fruit. Yep, no, I remember the cornucopia. Okay. Ooh, we're going back to hippies. Okay. Where did John Lennon and Yoko Ono have their first bed in for peace? All right. Okay. Amsterdam or New York? I don't remember this at all. So I don't have an answer for this one. I don't know. This is probably more of a older Gen X boomer type experience. But it's interesting that people are talking about this one because supposedly nobody had this before 1990. So that's interesting. Okay, Nina says New York, Amsterdam in 1969. Okay, this one messes with me. Star Wars. Does Darth Vader say, Luke, I am your father, or no, I am your father? Yeah, Leon says he never saw the cornucopia in the background of that. Yeah. Isn't that wild? Oh, and Nina says the wall was white. Wow. Okay. Star Wars. Luke, I am your father. Or no, I am your father. You guys like my Darth impersonation? I think it's pretty spot on, honestly. Yeah. Okay. Adrian Hicks says Luke. Mr. Shug to you says Luke. I say Luke. This is what I remember, right? Yeah, well, we're all in trouble. While many fans swear by the line, Luke, I am your father, Darth Vader actually said, no, I am your father. He never said Luke. See, Cynical says it's Luke. He never said that. He said, no, I am your father. See, now you guys are getting into my sphere here where it's like, but I remember it. Okay. So there's a whole bunch of examples here, and you guys can totally look them up online. Like this Totinos or Tostinos, that's one that gets people a lot. Is it Totinos or Tostinos pizza rolls? But it's actually Totinos. Yeah. Your Darth impression makes him seem like he's 5'3" and eats bonbons. Maybe he does. Okay. So those are kind of fun, right? But these mass memories also tell us things about ourselves, right? Because we talked about how we learn things, how we remember things. That shows how we think. And if we have these kind of Mandela effects, which they're no longer called false memories, some people call them false memories, but they're categorized as an effect, then can we always rely on our memory, right? Just as a small example, if, I'm trying to be funny and my kid's like, Ma, and I'm like, Luke, I am your father. And I'm quoting something that never happened, the joke falls flat, right? So that's just a minor example, but our memories can betray us. So we have to keep that in mind as we're setting our personal algorithm. Some people say it's the multiverse. I don't know, but it's more likely something called it's a fun word, confabulation or confabulating. And what it is that we're missing details and our brain just fills in the gaps because our brain isn't going to send us incomplete thoughts, incomplete sentences, incomplete images, and since it filters out things a lot, then when it brings it back to us, it has to fill in the gaps, and that's called confabulation. Okay. So this can also happen because memories of similar things are coded in close proximity to each other. If things are similar, they're coded into memory the same way. It's like based on a schema or an archetype, right? So when we recall something, we can confabulate details or pull overlapping details from something similar in the schema. Because again, it's not, when we're trying to pull information, it's not going to give us an incomplete thing. It has to give us a complete thing. So it's either going to pull details from stuff around it, or it's just going to make stuff up. It's just going to confabulate, right? So This can tell us things that are stored together, right? Like if we're pulling similar details, then we're like, oh, our brain put that together. Our brain thinks that's the same thing. And maybe it is and maybe it isn't, right? Maybe I'm storing pictures of dogs next to mass murderers because I'm scared of both of them. So maybe I want to now code dogs someplace different, right? But that right there affects how we are primed to see the world. This is what primes us and how we are viewing the world. Leon says that's a good one. I think it was no, I am your father. See, Leon remembered it right. He remembered it in reality. The rest of us were like, Luke. I know you guys like my Darth impersonation. It's pretty scary. You have to be careful because my Darth impersonation, it's really spot on. Okay, NPCs and the ops. This is the last part. This is how NPCs and the ops play into it, okay? So we talked about NPCs just kind of being people that they can seem like they're new here. Are you new here? I don't know how else to explain it. It's just like, do you know how the world works? Do you know how ordering a sandwich works? Do you get it? It's sort of like, do you even have a first person player? Is anybody home? You know, or they have the same talking points all the time. They just never seem any different. It's like they're reading from their standard issue talking points of the item that they want to talk about. They just non-playable character. This is how they seem. The ops are more like people who may seem soulless, or they may seem like they were just sent into your life to wreak havoc, break your heart, mess your stuff up, take your money, take your time. Like when we're talking about our personal algorithm, those are the NPCs and the ops, right? So it's people that just frustrate the process. This is the NPCs. And then there's people that mess with you. Those are the ops. Okay. Listen, it is Leon talks about I am your father, and it is definitely like a dad joke kind of thing to say. And yeah, they all had to see it, right? They all had to say it. But I remember him saying, Luke, I am your father, but it didn't happen. Okay. Now, as frustrating as it can be, the NPCs and the ops play a pivotal and important role in our lives. So I'm always going to harken back to we are the main character of our life, right? You are the main character of your life. You get to make all the decisions. You get to decide what your life looks like. You get to decide your Overton window, your variability, what you're comfortable with, who's around you, what your value system is, what kind of information you absorb. You get to decide all of it. As hamstringed as you may feel, and certain situations can be super duper hamstringed, you get to make those decisions about your interaction in the world. Again, everybody in here is an adult. Okay. It's so the NPCs and the ops are a lot like in dreams. So in dreams, when it is psychoanalyzed, right? Like if you're talking about your dreams to a therapist, a mental health professional, somebody who is analyzing your dreams, and I'm not talking about like the woo-woo side of things or like going online and asking a psychic to interpret dreams. I'm talking about like what you can actually study in college. In your dreams, every person that you encounter is some facet of you. It's some part of your personality, right? And we kind of get this on a certain level because it's your dream coming from your mind. And so it's like puppets, right? Like you're playing those roles. So there's part of you that can do the thing that that person is doing. Okay. So even if they're doing something icky and heinous, there's some part of you that has the culpability to do that. And again, that's the point of shadow work, right? We have to figure out what we're capable of. Like we have to figure out our villain side to know who we are. If you think you don't have a temper, then you'll never be able to control your anger. right? Because you'll be, anytime you lose your temper, you'll be surprised by it because you don't think you're capable of it. So the more we know about ourselves, the more we're able to control ourselves because we know that it's there and we all have the propensity to things because we're all humans, right? Um, Back when we talked about Descartes, right? I think, therefore I am. That so from this viewpoint, I am the main character. I'm the only one that I know for sure exists. So this is my story. Then every person who comes in, including the NPCs and the ops, has an important role to play, right? It is moving us towards something. It's either telling us that we're stuck in a pattern. And so we keep having to be, our process has to keep being frustrated by the same type of people over and over again. Or, we keep having somebody come in and break our heart over and over again, or take our money, or, get us in trouble at work, or, gossip and rumors, or making up lies, or, right. So they're telling something about us, like, why am I in this pattern? Why are these things happening? And how can I shift in a different way or break that cycle, learn that lesson, do that thing, right? Because they are either perpetuating our algorithm or they're going to assist in changing the algorithm, right? And since I'm in control of my algorithm, I decide what happens when NPCs or ops come at me. I decide what my reaction is, how important it is, what the lesson is, and how I move my life. Again, winning. You should be winning at life. Okay. So they're never as important as we might think they are. In the moment, we could be so angry because they're frustrating the process, or they could be attacking us so hard, or they could have hurt us so hard that we have all these really strong emotions about it. Emotions are, again, just sensory information to tell us something. We can all think of people who used to be pretty important to us that now are just kind of somebody that we used to know. We don't feel as strongly about them, if at all, as we used to. So anything that is giving us big, strong emotions right now is information for our use. Anybody who's ticking you off right now, anybody who's being shady to you or doing stuff to you, frustrating your process, any of that kind of stuff is just telling you you need to adjust your algorithm. You need to address it. You need to have the hard conversation. You need to get away from that person. You need to set them straight. You need to, and so that you bust up that pattern. Hopefully that makes sense. We've got through everything. And I wasn't, yeah, I guess it was a little bit farther over an hour. Leon says he experienced this when I was younger. Yeah. Okay. So we got to the end of all those details. We're going to have Shadow Work Wednesday next week. Hopefully some of us are able to get to the movies. Because again, it's a fantastic movie, Inside Out 2. So hopefully people are able to get there. If not, it's okay. We're going to talk about it anyway. So I guess we'll have to put on a spoiler alert. Then this Sunday, the live is going to be called The Wisdom of Insecurity. So we're going to talk about what is insecurity and how it's actually knowledge, it's wisdom. And I'm going to do a panel. So if you're interested in being on the panel, be here Sunday. So we'll talk about the wisdom of insecurity. We'll have a panel talking about insecurity and how to get wisdom from it. And I think that's it. Thank you everybody for being in here and for interacting in the chat. That helps me a lot. I don't feel like I'm talking to the abyss when I'm talking to you guys. So that's nice. I appreciate it. Okay, Cynical says, I'm curious about this phenomenon I've always had with deja vu through dreams. It can be years before it occurs in the waking world. there are ways to explain that. There are some explanations of that. Um, you kind of have to pick what resonates with you though, like what applies to you. You're the expert. Um, and I've talked before a couple times about doing dream interpretations and talking about dreams and things like that. If that and that kind of does go into shadow work because Jung kind of not kind of Jung wholeheartedly believed in dream interpretation, but so do several psychoanalysts. So it could be something that we do for shadow work. Um, maybe even the next one. That might be a good idea. That might be a good time to do that. If you guys want to do dream interpretation and talk about dreams and the purpose of dreams and things like that from scientific all the way to a metaphysical sense, you guys can figure out what resonates with you. We can do that next Wednesday. Let's do that. So if you have recurring dreams or anything like Cynical Optimist has about these particular things that happen around your dreams, bring that next Wednesday and we'll talk about it. Okay, Nina says, I feel smarter. Okay, Cynical will be back next Wednesday. Okay, awesome. Yeah, that'll be great. We'll talk about dreams next time. Dream interpretation is fun, but it's one of those things where it's best when you do it on yourself because you know you, right? Like you're going to know you better than anybody else in the whole wide world knows you. So, some of this may be like doing some dream interpretation, but then showing you how to do it, so that you can do that for yourself. Dream journaling is really fun and interpreting your own dreams too. All right. I hope everybody has a good rest of your Wednesday. For those of you coming on Sunday, again, it's going to be a panel. I look forward to seeing you on Sunday. If not, I'll see you guys next Wednesday.